Frustrated Sunwing passengers stranded, others unable to reclaim their luggage. More flights out of Pearson canceled today, halting service to many destinations. Good afternoon. We begin with more travel woes out of Canada's largest airport.
Sunwing Airlines has canceled several southbound flights today, causing confusion and anger. CTV's Janice Golding is live at Pearson this afternoon with the latest on the situation. Janice.
Hi, Michelle. Yes, travel disruptions continue for the beleaguered airline Sunwing, which has been dealing with a slew of upset passengers just trying to get home. This was the scene at Pearson's Terminal 3 yesterday. Frustrated Sunwing passengers demanding the return of their bags. This as Sunwing announced yesterday that all flights heading south from Pearson International Airport have been canceled as the airline works to get passengers stranded abroad back home. According to Sunwing's website, the cancellations impact flights scheduled for yesterday and today and blames recent weather disruptions, crew availability constraints, and extremely limited hotel capacity. Adding, this difficult but essential operational decision allows us to redirect our resources toward bringing delayed customers home as quickly and safely as possible. While Sunwing works to return stranded passengers home, travelers here in Canada have been left to deal with canceled trips. Rebecca Featherstone says she, her husband, and their 2 boys were at Pearson for more than 12 hours yesterday and received contradictory updates when they were able to get any information at all.
We checked in, went through security, and we waited, and everything was on time. The flight status said everything was running on schedule. And then they delayed it to 11:15. And then the app started showing 3 o'clock as a departure. But the screen in T2 said 11:15. And so, of course, everybody was asking questions, what's going on? The girl at the desk had no idea. It was just a big mess. And then at around 1 o'clock, they canceled. And they sent out an email or a text that everybody would get a refund in 7 days, and for their flight only, and that we should just vacate the premises.
Now, originally, passengers were told that they would get a refund within 7 days, but Sunwing has changed that to 21 days on their website. Rebecca Featherstone says she has rebooked her family vacation to March the 1st, again with Sunwing, which she says is the cheapest alternative, but she is very apprehensive about using the airline again. Reporting live from Janice Golding, now back to Nathan.
Thank you, Janice. The wreckage from the Delta Airlines flight that crashed at Pearson Airport earlier this week has been removed. The investigation now turns to recovering data from the plane's black boxes. The operation to remove the wreckage took several hours yesterday. There's no word yet on when that runway will reopen. Delta says it's offering $30,000 of goodwill payments to all passengers, and that will not impact their options to pursue legal action against the airline. The Transportation Safety Board of Canada says its investigators are conducting interviews and have downloaded data from the black boxes.
From problems at the... a date has been set for a potential strike or lockout involving the city's inside workers. The 27,000 members of CUPE Local 79 could be off the job as of March 8th. This comes after the Ministry of Labour issued a no-board report as part of the collective bargaining process. CUPE, which represents workers in areas like childcare and long-term care, says improved wages are the biggest sticking point.
We didn't ask for this fight, but we won't back down. Our members have given us a historic 90% strike mandate because they know what's at stake. Our backs are up against the wall. We don't want to be in this position, but if the city refuses to negotiate a fair deal, the impact will be felt by every Torontonian. The services people rely on every day will come to a halt.
The city said it's tabled its latest offer to the union on Monday, and it is waiting for a response.
Still ahead is exactly 1 week to Election Day in Ontario, but voters who want to cast their ballots early can do so at advanced polling stations starting today. Details on the campaign trail coming up a little later in the newscast. The city says it could take weeks to remove the recent dumping of snow from Toronto streets. Crews have been working to remove all that snow, but officials say it'll take time. The weather also isn't getting warm soon enough for melting to help. Mayor Olivia Chow stopped by a snow clearing operation in Scarborough this morning.
My late mother, for the last 10 years of her life, used a cane, and then a walker, and then a wheelchair. And every time there's a big snowfall, I'm always out looking for a place for her to be able to get out of the house, to go to her favorite grocery store to buy food. And so I understand the importance of clearing the snow. I'm here to look at the operation of snow removal. It's a tough job. And I'm also here to thank our city staff that have been working 24/7.
The mayor thanked residents who've taken the time to shovel snow for neighbors in need. She also urged drivers to make sure they aren't parked on snow routes.
Yes, there's a lot of snow, and there is more snow on tap. Nothing major, fortunately, as we take a live look at the city this afternoon. And along with some snow in the mix today, frigid temperatures and a biting wind chill for good measure. Lindsay Morrison is here with a look at the current conditions. Still very wintry.
Oh, very much still winter, Michelle. And as we look to this afternoon, we're anticipating a little more in the way of light snow in some areas. But as you mentioned, too, it is cold. -10 degrees right now in Toronto, feeling closer to -20. Those winds out of the northwest, they've strengthened over the last 24 hours here. And as a result, we are dealing with some lake effect snow locally and some snow squalls for areas to the southeast of Lake Huron. There are winter weather travel advisories in place. Here's what that looks like on the satellite and radar imagery. Maybe another 5 to 10 centimeters of snow expected there. For us in the GTA, this would really just be a trace to a centimeter or two. Just another light dusting, especially around the west end of the GTA. Here's today at a glance. -7 is our forecast high. We're going to take you through the weekend forecast coming up. For now, though, Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Turning now to efforts to relieve congestion in the city.
The Toronto Region Board of Trade has released some suggestions on how to ease some traffic with a new action plan. CTV's Natalie Johnson is live with the details. Natalie.
That's right, Nathan. The Board of Trade has come forward with a series of specific suggestions on how the city can work to break gridlock, a problem that has social and economic costs of about $45 billion annually across the GTHA. The business leaders who are behind this report saying this problem has reached crisis proportions. They acknowledge that there is no silver bullet to this very complex problem, but they are offering a package of solutions for consideration by City Hall. Some of those ideas include reducing lane closures by pricing those lane closures to incentivize faster construction. Right now, for example, Toronto charges just $37,000 per month to close a lane of traffic for construction. There is also a push to make off-peak construction on major arterials the norm, enforce the rules of the road, encouraging the use of more cameras and license plate recognition technology to issue infractions for double parking, for example, or stopping in live lanes of traffic, unclogging arteries by designating select east-west priority connector roads for vehicular traffic, and also clearing bottlenecks, including traffic snarls down around the Gardner that slow the whole network down. City Council, according to the Board of Trade, should also consider establishing a new reporting structure, such as a cross-departmental traffic czar, to oversee this entire plan. And of course, City Hall has seen many iterations of congestion plans over the years. I asked the president of the Board of Trade whether he believes there is enough political will and ability to actually implement this plan.
The city is not oblivious at all to the congestion crisis, but I think what we're trying to do is push harder, faster. I mean, I think that's what we're really trying to do. Acknowledging all the other priorities of the city, we think this ought to be number one and treat it as number one, which means other things are going to have to be maybe put aside a little bit or toned down a little bit in order to get this done, because it'll have a huge impact on everything else.
For the business community to come out, first of all, to be in such alignment is good news, and then secondly, to give us some specific things to think about as we develop our plans, that's also going to be very helpful. This is a business issue as much as it is a community issue, as much as it is a visitor issue. We need to take that into account.
We've hired a traffic agent. We have invested in public transit with a 6% increase of ridership. All of that helps ease congestion. Lots more we can do, but let's do it together.
The Board of Trade insisting that the need to tackle this issue on multiple fronts simultaneously is absolutely critical to restoring the movement of people and goods. Reporting live, I'm Natalie Johnson. Michelle, over to you.
Thank you, Natalie. York Regional Police have laid hundreds of charges in a series of home break-ins.
It comes as an investigation dubbed Project Dusk was unveiled today. CTV's Allison Hurst is live at police headquarters with more from the investigation. Allison.
This was a 4-month investigation from October until January, actually ending just last week. And it's the second year that Project Dusk has been implemented. York Regional Police started the integrated property team almost a decade ago, but Project Dusk started in mid-2024 and finished last week, resulting in the arrest of 20 people charged with 235 offenses. York Regional Police say every single one of the suspects arrived from outside of Canada, and investigators believe they came here for the sole purpose to commit crime for profit. Officers say Project Dusk was started to combat the significant rise in break and enters that occurs every year during daylight saving time in the fall. A woman whose home was broken into, Natalia, shared some of her story.
This is not just about stolen belongings. It is about the destruction of our sense of safety, our peace of mind, and the precious memories of my dad that will never be replaced. My mom is a widow. She has worked incredibly hard to provide a safe and loving home for me and my sister.
York Regional Police say the warrant has been issued for a 21st suspect, and they were able to dismantle 6 groups during this project. Reporting live, I'm Allison Hurst. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Allison. The provincial election is now just 1 week away, with leaders ramping up their pitch to voters.
Today, PC leader Doug Ford spoke on the campaign trail for the first time in 10 days. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris has been following every moment in this campaign. She joins us now live with the latest for today. Siobhan.
Well, Michelle, Doug Ford actually kind of brushed off a question I had for him about where he's been the last 10 days. We've seen accusations from some of his rivals that he's been in hiding. He's at least been away from media cameras, and he pointed out that he did take 90 minutes worth of questions at Monday's debate. But today, a return to the campaign trail, shaking workers' hands in 3 communities, in Concord, Burlington, and here in Milton. This is where he was joined by what had been billed as a special surprise guest. That turned out to be the Premier of Nova Scotia, Tim Houston. We saw both of them in full Canadian pride mode, wearing Team Canada hockey jerseys before the big game tonight. We did hear both of these leaders talk about the importance of breaking down barriers between provinces.
Right now, today, the biggest barrier blocking us from getting our immense resources to market, to getting our critical minerals out of the ground, or building the nuclear power plants that will fuel our economic growth for decades to come. It's not in Washington, Moscow, or Beijing. It's right here in Ottawa. We need the federal government to get out of the way. We need the federal government to cut its layers and layers of bureaucracy and red tape by scrapping impact assessment requirements that raise costs, slow down approvals, and stop provinces and territories from building.
We also caught up with the NDP leader, Marit Stiles, out voting early as those advance polls open. 3 days of advance polling this time around.
I wanted to vote early because, I expect that on Election Day I'll be busy getting out there and helping other campaigns. So it's one of the things I can do to make life easier for my campaign as well, and to show people that you can get out. You can vote anytime now, pretty much. It's easy. It's fun. I get to come here, and you saw I meet my neighbors when I went to vote today, and it's very easy to do. So I always am a big fan of advance voting. I think it get it out of the way. You don't have to worry about it on Election Day, and you don't have to worry about lineups or anything.
We would expand rent control to include buildings built after 2018. So all buildings in Ontario are under rent control. Second, we would bring in a moratorium on above guideline rent increases that are forcing so many people out of housing and facing homelessness. We now have over 81,000 people facing homelessness in Ontario.
And that was Green Party leader Mike Schreiner in Kitchener, where he's trying to shore up support for his deputy leader. Later this hour, in fact, we will see Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie deliver a speech to the Canadian Club. She's been reaching out to NDP voters, trying to get them to vote with her party. Reporting live from Milton, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan and Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. With just 1 week to go, the Daily Nanos research poll for CTV News shows Doug Ford's Progressive Conservatives dipped slightly in support, while the Liberals and NDP tick upwards. The PCs are down by 1.7% to just over 44% support. The Liberals are up 1% to 30.7%. The New Democrats are up 0.7% to 16.6% support, while the Green Party's at 6.6%.
When it comes to who voters prefer as premier, 41.3% of those polled chose Doug Ford, 25.4% picked Bonnie Crombie, and 14.2% of respondents said Marit Stiles. Just under 7% chose Mike Schreiner. Nearly 4% of those surveyed chose none of them, and 7.3% said they're unsure. The polls of 936 Ontarians are considered accurate within 3.2 percentage points, 19 times out of 20.
And, you know, the thing is, you know, with the exception of Toronto, which is a toss-up, we have the Liberals at 40% in Toronto and the Progressive Conservatives at 39%, so an absolute dead heat in Toronto between the Liberals and the Conservatives. But, you know, you step outside of, you get outside of Toronto and, you know, in the GTA, it's like 51 Progressive Conservative, 28 Liberals.
Now, for details on how to cast your ballot and how to check your voter registration, you can head to elections.on.ca. Voter information cards are also being mailed out this week.
The Toronto District School Board is calling on the party leaders to make students a priority and properly fund public education in Ontario. At their meeting last night, TDSB trustees approved a motion that would call on the leaders to commit to addressing what they say is a $1,500 shortfall per student. Canada's largest school board says there is a $38.5 million shortfall to support students with special needs. Well, Canada could be facing more U.S. tariffs. This time is a possible 25% duty on Canadian lumber and forest products in the spring. Donald Trump said last night he's considering the move. Canada's forestry sector described the tariffs as unnecessary and unwarranted. It says the United States meets about 70% of its home building lumber needs domestically and uses Canadian lumber to fill the gap. The U.S. president has already threatened us with 25% levies on all Canadian goods and 10% tariffs on Canadian energy. But that plan has been paused until March 4th.
Pierre Poilievre is in Toronto, where he held a news conference this morning at a local food bank. And with a federal election looming, Pierre Poilievre said the Liberals will be the same despite having a new leader soon.
The middle class, 80% of them are paying more income taxes. None of them can afford a home. And we've had the worst economic growth in the G7. That is the result of the promise that Trudeau made 10 years ago. And now Mark Carney is promising 3 small deficits, which he says will somehow cause economic growth and help the middle class. My friends, this is déjà vu all over again. Carney has the same advisors, the same MPs, the same ministers, and making the same liberal promises that Trudeau made a decade ago. But he expects Canadians to be duped for a 4th time.
Poilievre has called Mark Carney's plan to split the federal budget a sneaky accounting trick to avoid balancing the books. The Liberal leadership candidate has promised to split the budget into 2 streams while also running small capital deficits.
The Canadian Armed Forces have set recruitment targets for the coming years as they report an uptick in enlistment.
CTV's Rachel Aiello has those details.
So pressure's on. In an increasingly volatile world, the Canadian military is aiming to recruit and retain thousands more members within a few years.
We need to transform our military to adapt to what the threat of today and the future looks like.
Amid a long-standing personnel shortage, senior military officials gave an update on efforts to attract and train enough troops to hit their target of more than 71,000 regular force members and 30,000 reservists. From allowing recruits to begin basic training faster and expanding the applicant pool to include permanent residents, to targeted online ads and a more digital-friendly application process.
Right now, our recruiting system is not as agile as it needs to be.
The military is also no longer disqualifying applicants with certain medical conditions by default, allowing those with ADHD, anxiety, allergies, or asthma to be deemed fit to serve on a case-by-case basis.
Any and all conditions are on the table for consideration for enrollment.
On track to meet their recruitment goal for the year, in the last month, the Armed Forces received roughly 1,000 more applications than it did this time last year. But officials stopped short of attributing that uptick to the surge of nationalism that's been seen since Donald Trump's return to the White House.
So far, we're not tracking anyone who's coming in saying that that's the reason that they're joining.
And as for the U.S. president's threats to annex Canada?
Well, militarily, we're not there at all.
With two Liberal leadership candidates promising to increase the salaries of Canadian Armed Forces members as part of plans to speed up overall defense spending, the Chief of Defense Staff stopped short of saying if she thinks the troops are underpaid. Rachel Aiello, CTV News, Ottawa.
The bodies of 4 hostages taken during the October 7th attack were handed over to Israeli authorities today. 2 boys and their mother were abducted from a kibbutz. The father was freed earlier this month in the ceasefire deal. A 4th hostage was returned to Israel today. The Israeli military held a small funeral ceremony at the request of the families before transferring the bodies for formal identification. A group of living hostages are scheduled to be released on Saturday.
A planned news conference after talks between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and the U.S.-Ukraine envoy has been canceled. This cancellation happening as political tensions deepen between the two countries over how to end the war with Russia. The press event was to include comments by Zelensky and Keith Kellogg, but it was changed at the last minute, so the two politicians did not deliver statements or field questions from journalists. A Ukrainian presidential spokesperson said the change was requested by the U.S. side. Hockey fans on both sides of the border are just hours away from a dream matchup in the Four Nations face-off final in Boston. Canada facing the United States in a rematch expected to be heated on the ice and in the stands.
When you get the most competitive guys in the league on the ice together, it's going to raise another level. When you're playing for your country, you do whatever it takes to win, and you see that.
Canada lost to the U.S. on Saturday, and the rivalry was taken to a new height when 3 fights broke out in the first 9 seconds. The tournament comes at a time when real-life tensions between the two nations are at their highest point in decades. And there's been speculation Donald Trump might attend tonight's game. He says he will not be able to, but in a post on Truth Social today, he rallied the U.S. team to beat Canada and once again suggested Canada become the 51st state. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth is standing by in Boston with more on this highly anticipated final. Paul, this is a big moment with clearly a lot more than just hockey on the line.
Absolutely. And by the way, it's good to be with you all again. I would frame it this way. I've covered a lot of sporting events very similar to this when it comes to magnitude and many parts of the world. The one thing we're not really talking about much is the game itself because of all those other storylines. This morning, we wake up to a social media post from Donald Trump, as you mentioned, taking a shot at Canada, referring to Governor Trudeau, getting fans riled up, getting people riled up, escalating that cross-border vibe, those cross-border tensions we've seen over the past few weeks. Canadian fans booing the American anthem, something we're not used to seeing. I would suspect if there are 2,000 or 3,000 people in the building tonight who are cheering for Canada, we might see it again. It gets all these little drops in the bucket sort of coiling that spring leading into that game. And as a person covering this game, you kind of forget there's actually a game about to happen tonight because there's so many other storylines. But it all adds, it all flows to what's happening with this event leading into the game tonight. Cross-border tensions, anger going across the border, directing in both directions, booing of anthems, fights at the drop of a puck of a previous game. It all leads to this escalation, and it leads to a recipe of a very exciting atmosphere leading into this game tonight here in Boston.
Oh, goodness, you really painted a picture for us. Let's put all of that extra stuff aside and just focus on these two teams. Now, given that Canada lost to the U.S. so far in this tournament, are we considered the underdogs here? What's the likelihood that this is going to be a close game?
Well, I think it will be a close game. I'll answer that part of the question first. It would be, well, let me frame it this way. If it's not a close game, I would submit to you and your viewers that will be an upset. So let's assume it will be a close game. I think it's safe to say Canada is the underdog. The Americans are stronger in nets. They're coming off a win, and this is hostile territory. This is a home game for the U.S. So those factors probably put Canada at a bit of a disadvantage. From a game perspective, they lost to the Americans on Saturday night, and they scored 1 goal. Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, Mitch Marner, star-studded players, Mark Stone, all the way down the lineup, Nathan McKinnon, and they only scored 1 goal. They're going to need to score more than 1 goal. I don't care what team you are. If you only score once, you have a tough time winning. So I think the Canadians are going to try to find a way to get their offense charged up to match that elite talent and put more pucks in the net. And I would say, in my experience covering sports, in a deciding game, in a 7th game, or in a game like this, winner take all, the first goal is so important. So I would bet the Canadians not only want to score multiple goals, but get that early lead to get the Americans feeling down about themselves and try to take these fans out of the game just a little bit. It's not much of a complicated strategy, but it gives us perhaps a glimpse under the hood as to what they're probably thinking about coming into tonight's game.
CTV's Paul Hollingsworth live for us in Boston tonight ahead of what is a really highly anticipated game. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.
Well, for weeks now, we've been talking about how largely unfrozen the Great Lakes have been. But over the last week or two now, we've seen an increase in ice coverage. And this is going to be good news for putting a cap on the lake effect snow that has been relentless, especially off of Georgian Bay and Lake Huron. Georgian Bay almost entirely frozen now. One thing is for certain, and that's that this winter has been excellent for skiers and snowboarders. Conditions pretty well perfect at any resort across the province. And you know what else is going to be good this weekend? Travel conditions. If you're hoping to head to one of those ski resorts, we're going to talk about that. The rest of your 7-day forecast after this break here on CTV News.
It's touted as the ultimate celebration of all things sweet. Sweet City Fest is taking over Stacked Market, and there are just a few more days left to catch the event. CTV's Jessica Smith is live at the market to give us a taste of what visitors can enjoy and expect. I'm sure it's going to be good. Hey, Jess.
Listen, and it's free to get in, and that is my favorite price, Nathan. We've got the rock here. We're curling here at Stacked Market, tabletop curling, and I'm joined by Sam with Stacked Market. So talk to me about Sweet City Fest, because yes, it is delicious things, but you've also got so much more to offer.
Well, yeah, I mean, Sweet City Fest is this time of year. We have Family Day weekend, we have Valentine. But we do want, we have our curling lanes. We're going to have a lot of outdoor games, free cotton candy, and lots of stuff for the kids and families this weekend, which they didn't get to do last. So we're very excited about that.
We're blaming it on the snow. It happens. But you can do tabletop curling here. We got lots of options. Obviously, I'm very skilled. Just kidding. It was all by accident. But for the people who have never been to Stacked, what can you expect? Because there's a focus on shopping local.
There is. I mean, we have a huge marketplace, and we've sort of added to that with a whole vendor village celebrating Black History Month with a lot of small business owners from the Black community, offering up some tasty sweet treats. And yeah, other than that, there's lots of performances, workshops. We have comedy nights. We have live music on Friday. What's going on?
And we've got all kinds of stuff that you can do here at Stacked Market. And I want to talk about the food. And we have Khadijah here. Now, come on in. I want to talk about this treat you have here. Can you show everybody this delicious snack? We've got...
It's a maple pecan bacon roll.
So a maple pecan bacon roll.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what it means to be included in, the Sweet City Fest and just be down here at Stacked.
It's wonderful. Actually, I've been a resident of the neighborhood for nearly 5 years now. So being able to participate now as a vendor at Stacked, a place that is basically home to me, it's really special.
And obviously there is a focus for Black History Month on Black-owned businesses. How important is it for people to come down supporting you guys, not only now, but really throughout the entirety of the year?
I think it's really important. Statistics have shown that Black-owned businesses make like a smaller profit margin than other racial groups. And what I've learned thus far is like we all have something very worthwhile to offer. And just like participating and seeing the passion and like dedication of all the other vendors, yeah, I think there's something really worthwhile here. So hopefully folks will come out and see us, and support Black businesses, not just in the month of February, but all year round.
Now, you have some really tasty options. Do you have a favorite? I know it's hard to pick a favorite when it comes to delicious treats, especially when you make them, but do you have a favorite on your menu?
I do. It's actually my roasted marshmallow Rice Krispie treats, and they seem to be everyone else's favorite as well. Surprisingly, because I do a lot of there's like a Basque cheesecake, this maple bacon pecan roll, but Rice Krispie treats, who would have thought?
Listen, there's something sweet for everybody at Sweet City Fest, and it runs until the 23rd. You can come down and see Khadijah, get one of these beautiful, delicious rolls, or you can do some curling, you can roast some marshmallows. I'm low-key a little bit jealous because I've never seen a pink marshmallow ever before in my life. But again, you can come down. It is free to enter. You can come down and support local businesses, and it runs here until the 23rd. For now, I'll send things back inside where I'm sure it's a little bit warmer.
Got that right. You know, I've been to Stack Market. They've always got these wonderful events going on, and that looks sweet, dare I say it?
Oh, it looks amazing. And I got to say, the snow is such a lovely backdrop, and there'll be a little sprinkle of flurries today as well.
Yeah, there just might be. We have a chance of light snow early this afternoon, likely to taper off into the evening. Overall, though, it is a bit of a quieter weather forecast over the next couple of days here. Not completely clear. We do have a couple of opportunities for active weather. And then next week, we could be talking about a little bit of rain and not just snow. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm Injury Lawyers. You don't pay unless they win. But of course, this week we are still talking about the snow in Aurelia, Ontario. That's where we're bringing you to right now. It hasn't just been the system snow that we've seen here in Toronto the last week or so, but it's been weeks of lake effect. And as we know, the snowbanks have been piling up. That part of the province being spared somewhat when it comes to lake effect snow today. But a heads up, if you're joining us from the shoreline of Lake Huron and even into London, Ontario, you are under a winter weather travel advisory because of maybe 5 to even 10 centimeters of additional snow today. Also want to talk about us here in the GTA. Depending on where you're joining us from, there might be some flurries flying outside your window. No big system. This is a weak disturbance that's really going to be with us mainly for the afternoon, and then conditions are going to clear. For us, we might pick up a trace to maybe 2 centimeters of snow. Higher likelihood of seeing accumulation from Hamilton over toward Niagara Falls, and then of course around London, where as I mentioned, there is that winter weather travel advisory. Here's the forecast radar into this evening. It's cloudy, but we're starting to clear away from the active weather. The snow squalls are going to weaken off of Lake Huron too. A pause for tomorrow afternoon where we are expecting some sunshine. At the very least, a mix of sun and cloud here in the GTA. Then over the weekend, cloud cover is expected to become a little more dominant. Just a heads up, Saturday to the east of Georgian Bay in through Muskoka. A little bit of light snow going to be possible as well, but again, nothing too measurable. Certainly nothing compared to what we've experienced the last week or so here. And it's pretty quiet for us in southern parts of Ontario. Maybe a little bit of light snow into Sunday as well, but really just icing on top of the big cake that is those snowbanks out there. Current temperature in Toronto is minus 10 degrees. You consider the winds, and it feels more like minus 20. Today's high is expected to be around minus 7 degrees. That's very similar to yesterday and the day before that. Overnight tonight, cold once again. We're dealing with northwesterly winds ushering in some of that colder air. And then tomorrow, this is where we start to see a little bit of a gradual improvement when it comes to the forecast high. Minus 3 degrees in Burlington, minus 5 in Aurora. And as you're about to see on the 7-day forecast, we are going to be above seasonal by the time we reach next week. But first, let's talk about the weekend. Daytime highs of minus 1 for both Saturday and for Sunday. Again, a little bit of light snow possible on Sunday. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, highs of around 3 degrees above the freezing mark. But we're watching for maybe some wet snow or even some rain, especially Monday, but really over those next 3 days as well. That's the forecast for now. Michelle, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Well, coming up, a GTA family is sharing their story of loss, hoping to raise awareness about work-related cancer among firefighters. Well, firefighters put their lives on the line every day, but some dangers linger long after battling a blaze.
One GTA family sharing their story of loved ones lost in the service of others.
These are his helmets, the old leather one that they had at the beginning.
Grieving the loss of her husband of 56 years, Betty Jane Coles recalls her husband Brian jumping at the chance to become a firefighter when he turned 21, as soon as he was old enough to apply.
He always wanted to help people, and you know, the service part of it was a very important part to him. This is Brian on the roof here.
For 31 years, Brian Cole served Toronto Fire, becoming acting district chief. His son, Sean, following in his father's footsteps and becoming captain.
They were inseparable. Sean was like a clone of Brian's. He was a firefighter, a referee. Whatever Brian did, Sean did.
But midway through his career, Sean was diagnosed with an occupational-related cancer.
Sean passed away last June, and 3 months later, we found out that Brian had a tumor as well.
Retired acting district chief Brian Coles died last week, also of job-related cancer.
The likelihood of firefighters historically dying on the job would have been a flashover or a roof collapse or some sort of catastrophic explosion. That just is not the case anymore. Every single time they go into a fire, they are exposed to a toxic mix of chemicals and smoke.
Cancer now is the #1 killer of firefighters in North America. And not that long ago, only about a year and a half ago, the occupation of firefighting itself has been classified as a Class 1 carcinogenic.
Battling the risks beyond the blaze has come a long way.
They used to go into fires with no masks on.
Toronto Fire has invested in second sets of bunker gear, washing equipment, and increased training, working with the Firefighter Association to improve cancer screening.
These are the fellows off his crew.
Amid their tremendous loss, the pride of the Coles family is clear, even in grief.
Sean loved his job. And if anything, he was going to lose his life over, it would have been his job, because he loved what he did.
I never worried. I thought, oh, my dad's so brave, right? He's a firefighter. It didn't scare me.
He'll take care of things, right?
Yeah. It never crossed my mind that he'd eventually pass from cancer caused by, you know, a job he loved so dearly.
For the second time in a matter of months, the Coles family preparing for the last alarm. To other news, more than 1 million Canadians travel to Cuba each year to soak up the sun and get a break from the winter weather.
The vast majority of vacations happen without any problems, but one family is going public following an incident at a resort. CTV's Pat Foran has this consumer alert.
This isn't about bad food, late transfers, bad weather, or anything else. This is a serious criminal matter.
Greg Wolvet of Brampton says he, his wife, and stepdaughter have been taking winter vacations in Cuba for many years. Last March, he says his stepdaughter, who was 16 at the time, was allegedly assaulted at their resort by a hotel employee.
She pushed the button for the second floor, and the door opened, and a hotel employee on duty followed her onto the elevator.
Wolvet says the employee tried to kiss his stepdaughter, inappropriately touched her, and wouldn't let her leave.
We pulled her out of the elevator by the arm and tried to drag her down a darkened hallway. By this time, she's terrified, and she managed to break free.
The teen was able to run down some stairs and get back to her family's room. Wolvet says she was in a state of distress when he returned.
She had tears in her eyes, and she said, "I think I've just been assaulted."
Wolvet met with the hotel manager but felt the incident was not being taken seriously.
He said, "We're not responsible for our employees."
The family met with their tour operator Sunwing and the Cuban police, but were told if they pressed charges, they would have to remain in Cuba for an indefinite period. They decided to return home. The employee was fired, and Sunwing offered to refund the daughter's portion of the trip. Wolvet says the trip was ruined and wants a full refund.
They said, "What do you want?" And I said, "I want my money back, all of it."
CTV News reached out to Sunwing, and a spokesperson said the health and safety of our customers is of paramount importance, and we sincerely regret to hear about the incident which occurred on hotel property. Our customer relations team has been communicating with the hotel on behalf of the family. We are unable to comment further at this time. Wolvet also wanted to share what happened to warn other families to be careful even while they're at a resort.
If you're traveling anywhere in the Caribbean and you have young daughters, you should definitely have your antenna up and ready.
Pat Foran, CTV News.
Well, there's some good news to share with you in the wake of Monday's plane crash at Pearson Airport. Delta Airlines confirming today all 21 passengers who were initially transported to hospital for injuries from the incident have now been released. Delta's CEO Ed Bastian said the carrier is keeping in touch with customers and employees moving forward. The carrier is also offering $30,000 U.S. in goodwill payments to each passenger, and that it says won't impact passengers' options to pursue legal action if they accept. The wreckage from the plane from Minneapolis, meantime, was removed from the tarmac at Pearson yesterday as the investigation into just what happened continues. We'll take a short break. More news when we return.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Ontario goes to the polls, and one issue towers above all: the Trump tariff threat, tracking the candidates, and what it all means for you. Extensive coverage on CTV News and at ctvnews.ca.
The new administration of U.S. President Donald Trump has shaken up investors in cruise lines.
Andrew Bell of B&M Bloomberg has the latest business headlines.
Hello there, here are your business headlines. Investors dumped shares in cruise line operators today after the new U.S. Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, hinted at a tax crackdown on the industry. Lutnick said on Fox News, "You ever see a cruise ship with an American flag on the back? None of them pay taxes. Every supertanker, none pay taxes. This is going to end under Donald Trump." Shares in Carnival fell 7% and Royal Caribbean was down 9%. The giant Quebec pension fund, Caisse de dépôt et placement, is criticizing a plan by a Montreal-based trucking company, TFI International, to move to the U.S. TFI says 70% of its operations are based south of the border, and it has more shareholders in the U.S. than anywhere else. The case owned a stake of a little more than 4% in TFI as of the end of last year. And finally, Delta Airlines is offering $30,000 US to every passenger aboard a regional jet that came to rest upside down after crash landing in Toronto. The payments are, quote, a good faith gesture that have, quote, no strings attached and does not affect rights, a Delta spokesperson said. There were no deaths among the 76 passengers and 4 crew members, although 21 people were injured. That's the latest in business. I'm Andrew Bell of B&M Bloomberg.
Loblaw is planning a major expansion with 80 new grocery stores and pharmacies expected to open across the country this year. The company says 50 of the new locations will be discount stores. Loblaw and other major Canadian grocers have been putting more money into their discount banners as shoppers look for cheaper options. Loblaw says its fourth quarter profits were down compared to a year ago as more members collected and redeemed loyalty program points. The results showed profit of $462 million for the period, down from $541 million the year before.
We now know who will be hosting this year's Tony Awards. Tony winner Cynthia Erivo confirmed she'll take on the job of hosting Broadway's biggest night later this year, and she, of course, confirmed it with a nod to her role in the Wicked movie. The Tony Awards take place at New York's Radio City Music Hall June 8th. Meanwhile, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Scientists has revealed more presenters for this year's Oscars, including Oprah Winfrey, Selena Gomez, and Ben Stiller. Members had until Tuesday to get their votes in for the nominees they hope will go home victorious. The Oscars air live March 2nd right here on CTV, hosted by Conan O'Brien.
Coming up, a highly anticipated world tour has been announced for popular K-pop group Blackpink with a stop in Toronto. Details coming up.
Here at Jameson Vitamins, pretty much all we ever talk about is quality.
But it's more than just talk.
By testing all our sourced ingredients right down to their DNA. We won't be fooled, and neither will you.
Jameson Vitamins, relentless pursuit of perfection since 1922.
K-pop band Blackpink has announced a new world tour with a stop here in Toronto. The quartet has seen several members release solo albums, but they're also launching a stretch of 10 group shows with North American stops in LA, New York, Chicago, and Toronto. They'll play at the new Rogers Stadium July 22nd. Paul Simon's coming out of retirement to go on tour, and that includes shows here in the city. The 83-year-old is set to play 3 shows at Massey Hall, May 27th, 29th, and 30th. The tour kicks off April 4th in New Orleans and ends August 3rd in Seattle. Simon, who has lost most of his hearing, was set to retire in 2018 after going on a farewell tour. Tickets for his upcoming tour go on sale tomorrow. I'm sure that's going to be good.
I know, and by the time all those acts come to town, it'll be so much warmer out there, but for right now, we have to contend with the cold.
We do, and some light snow in some areas, too, depending on where you're joining us from. Maybe that's Milton, Brampton, Georgetown. You're getting a little bit of light snow right now. Here's the satellite and radar imagery. The heavier snow at this time is now along the Lake Erie shoreline and in through Niagara, as well as over toward the City of London and Lake Huron shoreline. Overnight tonight, we are forecasting a low near -11. It's going to feel like -20, though, because those winds, they're breezy, and so you notice it when you do step outside. There's tomorrow's school day forecast, a chilly start for the kids for the walk to school or to the school bus. We do have improving temperatures as we make our way into the weekend, above seasonal next week. Nathan and Michelle.
I can't wait. Thank you, Lindsay. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6.